Greetings, people of Earth, Mad Scientist Mac here, and today I wanted to showcase how I built my Gears of War suit of armor. So, let's get started. I began building this costume in October of 2019. Here's how it looked about a month after I'd started building. I've got the shoulder LEDs installed, some shoulder pads are on there, but those will be changed later, and the back LEDs are installed. I was originally modeling this off Hivebuster armor, but I decided to change that later. I was pretty happy with how the armor looked at this point, so I decided to start working on the helmet. The helmet consisted of about 16 parts, and this one took about 75 hours to print. The problem was it was way too big. So this led me to my second trial. I re-uploaded the file to my slicing software and scaled it down to 80%, thinking this would be the perfect size. But sadly, this one was too small. So I then scaled things down to 90%. I was beginning to run low on filament, so that's why this helmet's so many different colors. But thankfully, the 90% one fits. I installed some blue LEDs into the side of the helmet, and then started priming, which took about 4 coats, but it covered all the gaps nicely. I decided I wanted to add some arm and leg armor. I modeled my design off Kate Diaz's armor from Gears 4 and 5. Here's how the arm pads turned out. And here are the bracers. The shin armor I wasn't super happy with, so those would be changed later on. I then decided to build some thigh armor and installed LEDs into those as well. I then built some hip armor and attached all the 3 parts together. I realized I didn't have anything to put on my feet, so I decided to make some shoes, but they turned out horribly, so I scrapped those. While I was waiting for a foam order to arrive, I chose to do some work on the helmet. The paint scheme I chose didn't follow the reference photos exactly, but I wanted my armor to follow a different color pattern that I couldn't match to any reference photos I could find. The colors I used were black, iridescent silver, metallic blue, and red for the decals. Still waiting for my foam order to arrive, I had some time to paint the shin guards, arm pads, bracers, and my gloves. After looking at some pictures of myself wearing the armor, I realized I needed to bulk it out a bit. I discovered a Pepakura file on Etsy of Gears of War Onyx armor, and made the shoulder pads, arm pads, and shotgun shell holders. The file also included the upper body armor, so I printed out the templates, traced them onto the EVA foam, cut out the parts, and hot glued everything together. I then put everything back on for another quick size check, and it definitely looks a bit bulkier now. The Pepakura file was very limited in its detail, so I had to do all the intricate details based on a few reference photos and incorporating my own designs. The boots were another thing that was included in the Pepakura file. I didn't use every piece of the template that was included, but I used a select few to get the desired shape I was looking for. I then quickly Dremel drummed everything to add some false rivets and to clean up the edges. I then added quick seal to fill all the gaps on the boots, the upper arm pads, the shoulder pads, and the shotgun shell holders. Everything then received a full layer of plastic dip and was attached to the armor. I ran the LEDs into the back of the armor as well, so it had 4 additional glowing lights. I then attached the shotgun shell holders to the hip of the armor, but that would also change later down the line. I was much happier with how bulky the armor was beginning to look, so I chose to work on a prop, and I selected the Lancer from Gears of War. Everything was made out of mostly 5mm and 8mm EVA foam, and I used a PVC pipe for the barrel. Everything got dremeled to clean up the edges and add some more contour lines, and then the foam was scored and heat treated. When it's heat treated, it causes those score lines to really open up, so I did the same thing on the shotgun shells as well. And here's what the Lancer looked like after being heat treated and properly put together. I did use a template for this model, but I had to stray away from the template ever so slightly to incorporate a mag. that I could remove from the gun, and also to add the little blue LED in the side there. But all in all, it looks fairly close to the reference photos. And the removable mag is a lot of fun. I wanted to see how the LEDs would look in the dark, and I also wanted to find a way to mount my Lancer to the back of the armor. The first method was using some phone holders, but those didn't hold the weight of the foam. So I had to think of something else. But in the meantime, I decided to make a nasher as well, because what goes good with the Lancer? A nasher. Same process as before with the layering foam, dremeling the edges, and scoring it and heat treating it. While I was building the nasher, I discovered some high-powered magnets that I could include on the props and the back of my armor for the prop attachment points. These worked very well. The props were able to slip on and off the armor without much issue, and they didn't interfere with anything I had already built. Now that I had finished my props, I decided it was probably time to finish painting the armor. It wasn't fully completed yet. I still wanted to change the upper arm pads on the back of the armor and add a bit more coverage on some of the lower parts. But for the most part, everything was starting to look okay. The paint scheme was just the way I wanted it. Here's how the arms looked after everything was finished. The final paint job, the decals, and the varnishing. I also added some elbow pads. Next, I did the paint job on my boots. These took a surprisingly long time, but I was fairly happy with the result. And then I did my hip and thigh guards, and the shotgun shell holders. I changed how the shotgun shells sit on the hips. I also added another plate and some mag attachment points for the Lancer mags. I then finished painting the upper body armor. I only added a few decals to the back of the armor, because I didn't want to take away from the LEDs. Here's a look at what the inside of the armor looks like. I added an external switch to power the main LEDs, and another external switch to power my fans. One of the final things I had to do was make my own undersuit. It's mostly made out of just scuba fabrics that I traced off of some pajamas I had. While I was working on my undersuit, I decided to plastic dip and paint my props. Overall, I'd say the armor took me about 400 hours to create. It features 16 core armor components, 11 LEDs powered by 2 battery packs, and 8 neodymium magnets. And here's what the armor looks like. The photo in the top left is what it looked like when I first started.